الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. فقال سبحانه وتعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم. يعني هذه الآية المباركة ففيها يعني الحكمة للفدية في الحج. وقال سبحانه وتعالى في سورة حج وما جعل عليكم في الدين من الحرج. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nisa in the 28th ayah, He tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make easy for you, yani to make light. يخفف عنكم. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Hajj in the 78th ayah, He tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not placed in the religion any haraj, any hardship, anything that would be difficult. Tayyib, what does that mean? Yani when we find these ayat in the Quran, we find ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that in the religion there is ease, right? It doesn't mean easy is religion. And it's a confusion some people have. It doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. No. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a religion that is such that when you follow it, it's easy. You may think of it to be hard from afar, but when you follow it, in actuality, it's ease. And the hikmah of that related to the dars today is regarding the fidya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained the Hajj upon us. And this is for who? When you perform the Hajj, does it benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any? Does it increase the treasures of Allah? Does it increase the wealth of Allah? Does it increase the qudra of Allah? La, na'udhu billah. La. When you perform the Hajj, and if it's an accepted Hajj, may Allah bless it all for us to have, do you come out like a newborn baby? When you go for the Hajj, every step you take, every time when you're on your way, dusty, making dua, are your adhkar, is your dua accepted? Are your sins forgiven? Are you rewarded? So who's the Hajj for? It's to benefit us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained rules and regulations for the Hajj. Tayyib. Now, if you do not fulfill those rules and regulations and you make mistakes or you do things wrong, then it would have been very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say your Hajj is not accepted. Do it again. Right? But this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yukhaffif, yani makes it easy, light, doesn't make it too burdensome upon us. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not place in the deen any haraj. Nothing that's a real hardship in the religion. The religion Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made easy, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made fidya. So if you do make mistakes, you can fix those mistakes. But the sad part is, wallahi, ikhwan fillah, sometimes I think about this. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a religion of perfection, a religion with such depth, with such ilm, with such yani everything with a rule and a principle, and how we don't as a ummah learn those anymore. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for us to rectify our Hajj, but we don't gain that ilm. Instead, what do? We buy a package that's very expensive and we go with a guy. And this guy, who will call himself a sheikh, right, will be there to ruin your Hajj. May Allah guide us and them. This happens every day. I'm sorry, I gotta tell the truth. Right? And what happens is you make a mistake. And because this guy didn't actually study the rules and regulations of Hajj, he tells you, it's okay. You're like, all right. Or you do something and he gives you the wrong fidya to do, or whether there is fidya or not. And I mean, this is not something hypothetical. I get calls every Hajj. I cannot remember Mu'asam al-Hajj that I have not had a call from somebody who is in Hajj who calls me and tells me that their muallim, their guide, their sheikh, that they're paying money to be with gave them an answer which is totally wrong. And they may not know it. They call me like a few years ago. This is a real true story. I got a call from Mecca, from some of the brothers that had gone with a group from San Diego. Not going to mention what group it was or who was there. But there were some women in the group. And they told this guy that, Arafah is very crowded and it's difficult for us. I mean, they weren't disabled or anything, but it's difficult. He said, don't worry about it. Make dua from Mecca. So they never went to Arafah. Arafah al-Hajj, Arafah is the Hajj. They were physically able to go, they just didn't want to deal with the crowds. And this guy, who was there making money, free ticket, and getting paid, told them, don't worry about it. Stay in Mecca, make dua. Ruined their Hajj. It's very sad that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made something easy for us, but we don't even learn it to utilize that ease. Sometimes people put a hardship on people that's not there. I got a call, true story, real life stuff. Right? Brother's telling me, my head, it's got like this thing where I'm having hair fall out. What's going on? I haven't taken a shower for a month. SubhanAllah, why haven't you taken a shower for a month? He said, well, I went early. So we entered Ihram early. And the Muallim told us, you cannot take a shower in Ihram. And he told us that you cannot perform the Umrah until the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. Both incorrect. So this poor guy went early to Mecca, and he called me towards the end of Hajj. And this whole time he had not taken a bath, not taken a shower. He didn't do his Umrah, which he could have done early and taken off. It was tamattu'. He could have taken off his Ihram. He didn't do that. He did the Umrah on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, went, changed the Ihram, and came straight back to enter the Ihram for Hajj. Why? People made things difficult. Allah makes it easy, they make it difficult. So here we're going to discuss, inshaAllah, the Bab of Fidya. Now, before I begin, I want this to be good for us to learn, because we should all know. But at the same time, I will say, if you are in Hajj, and you do have a situation where you need to give fidya or some mistake happens, call a good shaykh, a person of ilm, a person of Quran with Sunnah, to give you an answer. Don't guess at it, because there's a lot more to it than just the initial ahkam that we learn. طيب. فقال المؤلف يخير بفدية حلق والتقليم وتعطي الرأس والتيب. The Mu'allif Ibn Balban, he says, you have the option regarding the fidya of halq, the cutting of the hair, and what is included in that, the nails, or wearing clothes, taqlim, when you're wearing a covering, whether it has to do with the niqab, as we spoke about. We already discussed this issue, so I'm not going to repeat it again. Or stitched clothes and things like that. Or taqtiyat al-ra's, covering the head, which is only for the men. Women should have their heads covered, obviously. Or perfume. So he says you have the option of the fidya regarding these four. Now when we mention this, we mentioned that included in that is also a separation wear, which is the clothing for men, which is stitched, and then there are certain clothing that are haram for the women in ihram. So we mentioned 5, but here he condensed it into 4 by putting the covering all together. طيب. What are the options? بين صيام 3 أيام أو إطعام 6 مساكين. So there are 3, as we mentioned, but he mentioned 2, and then we get into some tafsil. What is the first? To fast 3 days. So if you made any of these violations of ihram, right? For example, I saw a brother, I think Abu Ilyas was with me in that Umrah, when we were on the plane going to Jeddah. We crossed the miqat, we saw some brothers wearing the ihram in kufis. Right? We've already crossed the miqat. were wearing the rida and izar. We haven't landed in Jeddah yet. You see his brother wearing kufis, like wearing the qulansuwa or topi or hat. Now, here, what have they done? They have violated one of the rules of ihram. Now, what do they have to do? Either, if they knew, Wallahu alam, should have known, they had a group leader with them, they have to either fast 3 days or it'am sitta, feed 66 masakin, 6 poor people. طيب كل مسكين مد البر أو نفس الساعة بالتمر أو زنيب أو شعير أو غيرها. What do you have to feed them? Right? Here, because of certain ahadith, we have the clarification, which is beautiful, right? What is the dalil? The dalil is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is that the kafara, the fidya min al-siyam, you can have fidya from the siyam thalatha ayyam. Rasulullah clarified 3 ayyam. Otherwise, if you look in Surah Al-Ma'idah, from the Quran, we had the hukam, kafara, al-ta'am, al-misakin, al-adal, or ذلك الصيام, يعني, or the fasting. For fidya min al-siyam, or sadaqa, or nusukh in Surah Al-Baqarah in the 196th ayah. So from these ayat, we had from the Quran itself, the 3 things. What is it? A-siyam, a-sadaqa, which is the feeding the poor, or nusukh, yani nusukh, which is the dham, which is the blood sacrifice or giving an animal for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tayyib? But how do you do them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a siyam, but He doesn't mention how many. Right? So those who don't accept the authority of hadith, how would they answer the question? How many fast? But from the Sahih hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we found out that the sawm is 3 days. Feeding of the miskin, there are marfu' and waquf ahadith to clarify, and other ayat that are used. I'm not going to go too deep into it. But what does it tell you? That there are 6 of the miskin that you need to feed. What do you have to feed them? Is it okay if you just give them a Snicker bar? Or here, you can either feed them a meal according to urf, right, like an actual meal, or you can give them food. How much food can you give them? A mud of bur, which is wheat. Tayyib? Or a nis-sa' of dates, raisins, barley, or the like. Tayyib. What is a mud and what is sa'? We'll discuss a little bit more in detail coming up. But in essence, because we know that the sa' is 4 mud. When you have 4 handfuls, it makes a sa'. Ulama gave different opinions about the exact measurements, and I'll discuss them from some of the books that I found of ulama that discuss this in great depth. But to understand that you give the miskin either 1 mud, handful of wheat, or if you're going to give other than wheat, then you can give 2 handfuls, which is half a sa', which will be of tamar or zabib, which is raisins, or sha'ir, which is barley or other things. Tayyib. Or dabh shatin. Or you can sacrifice shat. What is shat? Sheep. How old does a sheep have to be? 1 year. Can you give a goat? Yes. How old does a goat have to be? 2 years. So shat is either a 1-year-old sheep or a 2-year-old goat. Tayyib. وجزاء صيد الصيد ما هو, and the compensation for hunting. طيب, now in our time, does anybody really hunt in the haram? No, don't think so. Maybe there's some wild rabbits there, brothers get tempted, right? But nobody really hunts there. But again, Islam wasn't just for our time. Islam is for all times. And there was a time when they didn't have all these restaurants and hotels and things, so people used to hunt. So these rules and regulations were put in place, and they are still in place. طيب? Because Islam is for all times and all places. طيب, so what about if somebody hunts? Now regarding hunting, and I'll explain a little bit later, remember there are two offenses here. One is you cannot hunt inside the haram mutlaqan. Even if you're not, let's say you live in Mecca and you live within the haram and you find a wild rabbit in your porch, right? Can you take out your pellet gun and hunt it? No. You can say, I'm not in Hajj, I'm not in Umrah, I'm not in Ihram, but still, this is the haram. It is a sacred, holy place of peace. Right? Then the second violation is when you're in Ihram. طيب, now, when we already mentioned you cannot hunt within the haram, why the violation of this of the state of ihram? Because your state of ihram you will be in even outside the haram. Right? So let's say you are in Muzdalifah. Muzdalifah is outside the haram of Mecca. If you are in Muzdalifah and you are not in Hajj or Umrah, can you hunt? Yes, you find a rabbit, get it. طيب? But what if you are performing Hajj and now you are in a state of ihram? You cannot hunt there. Even you are in Muzdalifah, you are in Mina, you are in Arafah. Let's say you're on the way from Medina, you pass the miqat, you're not even close to the haram of Mecca, but you're in ihram, you cannot hunt. طيب. What if you do? Right? Now, فقال المؤلف مثل مثلية ما هو? If what you hunted has something that has a مثل to it, يعني something that is like it. Okay, let me explain. And the amazing thing is, this is not like some alim's ijtihad. There are clear ahadith from the Sahaba who hunted and they explained this issue. In the Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah, I found the ahadith myself. Authentic ahadith in the Musnad Imam Ahmad and other books of hadith as well, where they explained about somebody who hunted, and the Sahaba then explained, what did you hunt? You hunted this? Okay, you have to sacrifice this because it's like it. So what does that mean? If you hunted an animal that has something like it, then you have to sacrifice as a fidya what is like that animal. And there are three categories of animals that are given tashbih. طيب? One is the camel. كما قال المؤلف هنا. طيب? One is the camel. Second is the cow. And third is the sheep. So if you hunt something that is equivalent to a camel, right? And I'm not going to go over a list of what animal that is, but there are ahadith on it. So if you do happen to hunt in the haram or in ihram, call me, we'll talk about it. طيب? Or if you hunted something that is equal to a cow, right? Maybe a wild buffalo or whatever. They used to have wild buffalo. طيب? Or something equal to a sheep. طيب? Maybe a gazelle. Right? Then you will give in fidya what is like it. طيب. Or it is something where you cannot give something like it. Let's say you hunted, but now where are you going to get a camel slaughter? Maybe you can't get one. Then you transfer the value of what you hunted into darahim. كما قال المؤلف بالدراهم. يعني you give a monetary value to what you hunted. You hunted something and you cannot give like it. Then you say, okay, how much would this be if I bought it at a market? The meat of it, yani the whole animal, so you get it. Then, or alive. Then you look at the value of it and you have to give the value in money. It says بالدراهم, but can you give in dollars or riyal? Yes. Yani its value in what is the monetary currency of the time. Or you can buy food to the value of that animal. طيب? and give that food to the poor. طيب? What does that mean? طيب? For example, you hunted something that is worth 1,000 dinar. Example, 1,000 dirham, 1,000 US dollars, or whatever. Now you may not have the ability to buy an animal like it, but let's say you have with you an equivalent amount of food, right? Or you can buy an equal amount of food. You cannot give cash sadaqah. Then you can give that food as long as it's equal amount to the miskin. ويجزي في فطرة يعني في الفطر يعني عيد الفطر. So he says, and it has to be the type of food that you could give for zakatul fitr. Zakatul fitr, we discussed this mas'ala, right? What can you give? You can give food. It has to be food, right? Wheat, barley, raisins, staple foods. So you cannot go and say, you know what, I'm going to give $1,000 worth of caviar. Because that may not really benefit people much. Right? It has to be staple foods or what people eat. Unless caviar is your staple food. Maybe you hang out with Putin's inner circle or something. But staple food regularly is not going to be caviar. It's going to be things like bread. It's going to be things like rice, dates in certain parts of the world. Maybe not here, right? So those staple foods, beans, certain parts of the world, right? So those staple foods can be given. So he's saying you have to give the ones that are like that. So for the animal that has something like it, mithl, you have three options. Either give another animal like it, and you have to figure that out from the ulama who will give you from dalil, from hadith, what is like what. Or you have to give a equivalent amount of wealth, right? Or you have to buy food and give it, and it is like the giving of zakatul fitr in that time. Or you can feed a miskin, every miskin, mud, we mentioned about min al-bir, or min bur, with wheat, or nisf sa'a min ghayrihi. طيب, so now we get into the other options. Or you can give one mud. I said I will discuss what is a mud. I looked up the books of ulama, and we found some ulama that gave very clear dalil. Amazing. What they did is they have Sahaba who had dishes that would be a mud or a sa'. And then when they narrated these ahadith to the tabi'un made dishes based on the dish of the Sahabi. And you look at the silsila in hadith. It's called musalsil. And it is like with an explanation from each generation. And that kept going till our time. And they have the sanad. And going back, whose dish did I compare to who they... So we have these, alhamdulillah. And ulama, they would fill these dishes and weigh them and try to tell us how much. There may be slight differences. Why? Because not everything weighs the same. I mean, here and there. But in essence, the mud, I found some of the ulama, they gave about, in grams, about 544 to about 650 in grams, depending on what it is. So the sa'a would be 4 times that, so about 2,600 grams. In liters, right? We use gallons here, but a lot of the ulama, they write in liters. They gave the mud to be 0.51 liters, and the sa'a, which is 4 times that, is 2.04 liters. This is something beneficial for us to know, but the easy way is, mud is 1 handful. You take 2 hands, scoop them up, and this is a mud. And when you get 4 of these, this is a sa'a. Easy, alhamdulillah. So you could feed a miskin 1 mud, or you can give nisf sa' of others, which is 2 mud. Or يصوم عن طعام كل مسكين يوما. Or maybe you can't afford it. You can't afford the food, you can't afford cash value, you cannot afford to buy an animal like it. Maybe you're broke, like me. Allah give us wealth. Tayyib, with khair. So what do you have to do then? Then you can fast one day for each miskeen that you should have fed. Tayyib? So then you fast one day per miskeen. طيب والبين إطعام والصيام في غير مثله. طيب, now we get into what if you hunted an animal that doesn't have something like it, right? Maybe it was something unique. You hunted an ostrich. Now what do we do with the ostrich? I don't know where to. Does it go under a cow or a sheep? We don't have a dalil for it, right? So if you hunted something that doesn't have something like it, then you have the choice of either feeding the poor or fasting. Because you cannot give darahim because you don't know the value of it. And you cannot give something like it because it doesn't have anything like it. But you can still feed the miskeen al-mud min al-bur or nus-sa' min ghayrihi, or you can fast. Yani how much you would feed, how many masakin you would feed, you fast instead of that. That works. طيب. وإذا عدم متمتع يعني من هو في حج التمتع أو قارن من حج القران الهدي. What if you don't have the sacrificial animal and you are performing tamattu' or qiran? Tamattu', as we discussed already, how do you perform it? You do the umrah first and then you enter the ihram for hajj and you do the ihram. So it's called separate. Qiran, how do you do the umrah and the hajj niyas together? In either one of them, what if you don't have a hadi? You don't have a sacrificial lamb. This may seem like, oh, well, come on, man, it's easy nowadays. But a lot of brothers have and sisters have run into the situation. Because what happens is they obviously haven't prepared anything from here. In Saudi, you're supposed to get a slip. Some people do it themselves, mashallah, la quwwata illa billah, Allahumma barik lakum, it's hard. But usually, most people, they go to the people that are set up, they give their money and they get a slip of when the hadi will be sacrificed, so then you can take your ihram off for hajj after that. Tayyib. Some people miss it. It's happened. They didn't get the slip on time, they weren't able to get it done, the time passes and now they haven't sacrificed. It happens today. So if somebody went for hajj, tamattu or qiran, and they didn't in the old days, sometimes for qiran especially, they would take the hadi with them. They would start off from their house with their sacrificial animal. For tamattu, even if they would buy, what if they couldn't get one? So in that situation, maybe they couldn't afford it. طيب, in that situation, what do you do? فقال المؤلف الصيام 3 أيام في الحج. Then you have to fast 3 days during the hajj. والأفضل جعل آخرها يوم العرفة. And what is best is to make the last of those 3 days the day of Arafah. That's the day before Eid. Because you're not supposed to fast on Eid. Tayyib, what about an Umrah? It's a trick question to see who's still focusing. Is there a hadi in Umrah? Huh? Did you guys sacrifice an animal last time you were in Umrah? There's no hadi in Umrah, so you don't have to worry about Umrah. It's a trick question, come on, wake up. Tayyib. So the hadi is only in Hajj. In Umrah you could have it under fidya and things, but regular you don't have. Right? Umrah, basically you go, you make tawaf, you make 2 rak'ah behind Maqam Ibrahim, you drink your zamzam, you do your sa'i, you cut your hair, you're done. Right? Wearing ihram at the right time. Tayyib. So if you forget that the animal, then if you remember, or if you're not able to, you have to fast 3 days from the days of Hajj. And when you're there. And the best is to make the last of them the day of Arafah. And if you return to your family, to your ahl, then you have to fast 7. وَالسَّبْعَ إِذَا رَجَعَ لِأَهْلِهِ. If you do it there, how many days do you have to fast? So easy, I'm giving you the answer. 3, right? From the days of Hajj. Let's say you didn't do it there. And this happened to a brother that I know. He didn't do the Hajj. He came back to the US, called me. Brother, I couldn't get to the Hajj. What do you mean you couldn't get to the Hajj? You're supposed to go. I was too busy, I couldn't do it. I didn't feel good. Okay, fast 7 days. So if you come back home, then you have to fast 7 days. طيب. For the muhsar, yani the one who's prevented. Al-muhsar is the one who's unable to go. Let's say you go out with the niyyah of Hajj, for example, and then there is a war going on, or there are bandits, or nowadays we don't have so many bandits in most places. Still got some pirates, right? But in the old days, that's a big problem. You would set out from, let's say, Uzbekistan, and you would be on foot or on camel before trains and cars and ships, and you would cross over Afghanistan and Iran, which is Faras at the time, Khorasan, this area was called Khorasan before, and then what is Iraq today, and then the Arabian, and in those deserts sometimes there are bandits. So what if you get prevented, or there are wars, or like some of the famous explorers that Ibn Battuta and others, they had this issue when they used to go, and there were sometimes wars going on and you couldn't cross. Okay? So if you are in that situation, then you have to Sam 10 ayyam. If you're not able to do it, you went out with the niyyah and you weren't able to do it, you have to fast 10 days. ثم حل, yani then you take off the ihram after the 10 days because you're not able to go. And the expiations are tasqut, they are forgiven, they are silenced. They are not wajib for lubus, yani for wearing, or tib, or putting on the perfume, or taghtiya ras, yani or covering the head, if it is done nisyanan. If it is done out of forgetfulness. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are going to Hajj and you finish your Umrah and you are in Mecca. I saw some brothers, they were buying nice shimaghs and things, the ghutra, and they had now put on their ihram for Hajj. Right? But I saw one brother, he's wearing the ihram now, and we're in the days of Hajj, and he's telling his other brother about this shimagh, and he puts it on his head. He forgot. And as soon as he remembered, he took it off. See? It was out of forgetfulness. So in this case, there's no fidya on it. I'll give you another example for where there is fidya. We also saw some brothers, one of the times I was in Hajj, and these brothers were going from Mecca to Aziziyah. And it wasn't very hot, but the sun was out. So they took their rida and they put it on their heads. And it wasn't like an emergency heat wave or something. It was already Asr time, but Mecca is still hot. So they tied it on their heads. So this is not out of forgetfulness. Right? Here they have fidya. So, but if you did it out of nisyan, out of forgetfulness, there is no fidya for it. وكل هدي وطعام فالمساكين الحرام. Every hadi, what is hadi? The sacrificial lamb or goat or sheep or camel or whatever it is. We'll talk about what all you can sacrifice. Or feeding of the poor in fidya has to be done for the masakeen of the haram. Yani it has to be given in the haram. Not necessarily in Mecca itself, but in the haram of Mecca. Mecca today as a city is smaller than the hudud of the haram. And alhamdulillah, even till today there are masakeen there. So you can fulfill this without a problem. طيب إلا فدية الأداء أو لبس أو نهوها, except for if it is a fidya of harm, we'll talk about what that is later inshallah, or wearing the stitched clothes. It's something that has to do with clothing, whether it is the stitched clothes or the niqab and gloves for women and all that, or like it, then it is given wherever it was occurred. Right? What does that mean? Maybe you were in Arafah, and in Arafah you put on khuf that cover your ankles, and you didn't have any kind of need for it. So you violated one of the rules of ihram, even though you're not in the haram. That fidya should be given in Arafah. And the dalil for that is the fidya that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave in Hudaybiyah. And Hudaybiyah is not within the haram. طيب. And what is like it? طيب. طيب. ويجزي الصوم بكل مكان. And you're allowed to fast in any place. What does that mean? طيب, what if you have to make up by fasting? Do you have to fast that within the haram? No. 3 days within the days of Hajj can be outside the haram, or 7 days when you get back. So the fasting is not tied to a place. But dam shat, or the shat that you're going to give, or sub'a al-badani, or what you can do when you're giving dam, when you're giving a blood sacrifice, you can give a shat. What does that mean? A sheep or goat. How old does the sheep have to be? 1 year. How old does the goat have to be? 2 years. You can give that. Or you can give sub'a. You can give 1/7 of a camel, or baqara, or a cow. So if you're giving the fidya, like what we do in Eid al-Adha is coming up, you can give a sheep, a goat, right? The sheep has to be 1 year, goat has to be 2 years. Or you can give 1/7 of a camel or 1/7 of a cow. You can go in together on a cow or camel. طيب ويرجع في جزاء الصيد إلى ما قدمت فيه الصحابة. And with regarding to the compensation for hunting, we return back to what the Sahaba judged. A very beautiful statement. What does that mean? The Sahaba radiyallahu anhum have a hadith where they explain what is the mithal of what. So we go back to the dalil. We go back to those ahadith when the Sahaba gave a judgment, and we follow that. And if we do not find that, فيما لم يقض, يعني where they did not give a verdict, فيها إلى قول, يعني then you go to the saying of عدلين خبيرين, يعني then you go to two knowledgeable people. And what do? You go to, for example, one scholar. Today you can go to a scholar. A scholar may be able to just give you an answer from a hadith that you don't know. But let's say there is no dalil on it. Okay? There is no dalil from a sahabi. Then you go to two people who are of good moral character, who know about animals, who have the ilm, who are aware, who are experts in this field, and then they can give you a hukam, right? That this is like this or this is like that, meaning those who know about the likeness of animals when there is no clear dalil. طيب وما لا مثل له تجيب قيمته, يعني we said what does not have the like of it, then you have to give the price of it, whether it's to the hungry or the fasting we talked about, makanahu, wherever it happens. So if you're not going to sacrifice it, then you give that wealth or that feeding of the hungry or that fasting wherever it happens. Well, حرم مطلقا سيد الحرم المكة وقطع شجره. Now the muallif, he goes to things that are haram within the haram of Mecca mutlaqan. So that means even if you're not in a state of ihram, it is haram to hunt in Mecca, in the haram of Mecca, not just the city. or to cut down its trees, or to cut down its bushes and grass. إِلَّا idkhir, except for one type which is called idkhir. Yani this is mentioned in some ahadith and aqwal of ulama and things. I tried to look at its equivalent in English, and I found something called a sweet rush. It's a type of a grass or plant. So because there is jawaz in nas, yani in dalail, there is the permissible there. وَفِيهِ جَزَاءُهُ. If you hunt in Mecca, or if you cut down a tree, or if you harm bushes or things like this, without reason. Sometimes you have to build houses, to build accommodations and things. But without reason, then you have to give compensation. And it is forbidden to hunt within the haram of Medina. Inshallah, later we'll talk about the haram of Medina. It's not like the haram of Mecca. Or to cut down the trees, or its bushes and things without haja, لغير حاجة, without necessity. But illa, except when you want to get, in Medina we're talking about, and other things as well, unless you want to get, yani you have a necessity to put together grass for feeding animals, or to make, yani what's mentioned here with camel saddles, or the like of that. In Medina, there is no expiation. In Mecca, you have jaza, yani you have to give expiation if you do any of these things. In Medina, there is not, and there is dalail on this, clear dalail. Okay? Inshallah, we'll end here, and we finish the bab on fidya. Inshallah, next dars, we will do the actual breakdown of how to do the Hajj. Dukhul al-Makkah, from entering the Makkah, point by point, and the sifa of Hajj and Umrah in the next, inshallah, dars or two. And then we will be ending this bab and ending these durus, inshallah. So we encourage everybody to come, especially for the next two durus. The brothers will be in Hajj there, and we'll be going over the tartib here, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan.